Done this great work and shown us, how these ants did these things, and then it turns out they're completely wrong. Well, you've been fucking kids over with shitty education.
You know what this is?
African identity, a threat to European dominance?
Because you don't want to admit it.
Being wrong sucks. Nobody likes being wrong.
But the thing about history is, like, of course you're going to be wrong. I mean, what they should do is they should say, this is what we thought. So for years we were teaching this, because that's what, as far as we knew, that was correct. Now we know differently. And this is what's amazing about archaeology. This is what's amazing about history. But they don't want to do that. Because then they would have to get rid of those books.
Well, it's not just that, Joe. Alright, so they have to get rid of
How
the books, but there's other important too.
I said, how about it?
Scientists and
Talking
all
about
these people
that.
are making big bucks for writing
Talking about that.
textbooks, handing out degrees, doing documentary opportunities, all kinds of stuff. So they've made a complete livelihood on something that is, let's say, partially incorrect. I'm not saying they're wrong about everything.
Right.
But like, so the implications is like there's big money around. Some of these people are have done very well for themselves.
Yeah.
And so to be wrong, it's like, oh shit.
So make a new freaking book and correct it.
No.
Yeah, it's a weird part about
I said, so
being
make a new fucking book and correct it. I mean, what the hell is so fucking hard about that?
value as a person.
Yeah, this goes back, I like to make the comparison too to
It's too damn
Galileo.
bad.
They were going to torture him to death, but he had actual definitive evidence that we were rotating around the sun and not the other way around, and they were like, no, no, and they're gonna, Joe, they put him on house arrest, he had to recant everything, or else, and I'm like,
that's a religious thing, though. That's the same reason why these morons broke down those ancient structures in Iraq. When you look at the overall abundance of evidence when it comes to Egypt, and you factor in these people like Graham Hancock and Bouval and all these people that have looked at the history of the structures, it seems like there's multiple kingdoms and multiple eras, and that they had existed for a substantial amount of time. And why was it all in that one place? That's what's amazing.
And when you say that these multiple kingdoms, so that's the story of Egypt. They call it the Old Kingdom, which was followed by the Intermediate Period. So Intermediate Period is essentially lost history. That was an uprising. It was complete overthrow of the government. And you're talking, the first Intermediate was, like I said earlier, 126 years. Then they go by a few more hundred years, and then there was another 200-something year. Yeah, in that transition, so you were talking Old Kingdom, Intermediate Period, Middle Kingdom, Intermediate Period, and then New Kingdom. So that's my point that I'm going back to, is that how can we possibly say definitively, or they talk so definitively about, say, the Old Kingdom, and I'm like, when two other kingdoms came after who could have wiped out that history, or simply because it's thousands of years later, passed down incorrect information.
Yeah, here's a mind blower for people. The amount of time between Cleopatra and the iPhone is shorter than the amount of time between Cleopatra and construction, the established construction date of 2500 BC of the Great Pyramid.
Wild, huh?
It's wild. Like, Cleopatra lived closer to the iPhone than she did to the construction of the pyramids.
I wish I could go back in time and date Cleopatra.
You go out with her? Is that what you're saying?
When you?
But people say she was really ugly though.
Probably didn't shave.
The legends are that she was
For them.
her looks were just okay, but her personality is what seduced everyone.
Oh, she had a great personality.
Yeah, she seduced
No,
Julius Caesar and then Mark Antony. Like, she was going for the top dogs, and they like some of the,
she was
the history
cutthroat.
behind it is wild in that they like
She was ready to take everybody. My siblings, I don't care who I gotta take out.
Like
I will take you out if I have to.
My point is, the last thing I'd be interested is going back there and having sex with somebody.
Remember when I read
wanna
that
go
thing
back
and it said
see
she
what
rolled
the fuck
herself
they were
up
doing. Like, what
in a
was
fucking
life like
carpet
back then? Like, what
and was
what-
carried from
what
wherever, and
was
I'm just like,
Egypt like?
yo,
Like, what was it
how?
really truly like? There's only speculation. We really don't have any idea. We don't have any idea what their.
Listen,
So
I
if you
want
want
to
to go back to as far as Robert Schoch and Graham Hancock's want to indicate, they seem to point to a time where at least the construction of the Temple of the Sphinx, we're talking 10, 11, 12,000 years ago. What the fuck was that like?
And when it was green, because I
Yeah.
can show you other sources that say 4,500 years. I'm talking about the Sahara being
Yeah.
green. Jamie, if you wouldn't mind, could you just Google Sierra green?
Sahara.
Yeah, Sahara. What was I saying?
Sierra.
Sierra?
Sound like you're saying Sierra.
Sahara. Being green, and you'll see these articles. Like, so the point is that, like, okay, so when you say it'd be completely different, well, if Sphinx is, say, at least double the age, and I'm sure it's older, well, it was when it was green, because let's not forget, Egypt is in the Sahara Desert.
Right.
So when I see dates like 5,000 years, and they do say some of these estimates that the entire Sahara went from green to desert in possibly within 100 years.
So, and this is around 5,000 years ago that it went over the shift?
Yes. And I'm like, that is so close, Joe, to these dates of the Giza pyramids.
Right.
That makes me think that because of cataclysm and let's say real climate change on a level that we don't even wrap our minds around. I mean, think about it. North Africa, or the Sahara, is much larger than the contiguous the 50 states, the United States. So it's like, it's such a huge area, and to think that something could have changed so dramatically and would have been erased with it, if you find, I was just looking for an article just to show viewers, like, I know there's Live Science as a number, and Smithsonian, and National Geographic, and I was just, so there you go.
I was trying to find visuals.
Oh, right on. Yeah.
So the Sahara was green at somewhere around 5,000 years ago, which is roughly around the same time as the proposed construction date of the Great Pyramid, which is 5,500 years ago. Right?
Yeah, 4,600, right around there. Each one is supposed to,
And carbon dating is a plus or minus of a few hundred years either way, right? So it could have been around that.
There's a margin of error.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's not like they have an abundance. I mean, don't quote me here, but they don't have an overwhelming, substantial amount of evidence that they've repeatedly tested those dates on all this organic.
Have you looked into it? Do you know how much they did?
I thought it was one little thing. If I remember, I thought it was a little piece of wood or whatever it was. It's like, aha, here it is.
Let's Google that.
Yeah.
Let's find out what did they test? Yeah, what did they test to date the construction of the pyramids?
I started finding something about a piece of a boat. I think they thought they found.
Oh, that's
Well, it's just amazing. Really is amazing, and it's hard for us to imagine I think it's hard for us to imagine 1,000 years. I think we kind of get it. Oh, 1,000 is 10 hundreds. I think we kind of get it, but I think it's one of those things that gets lost in the mind of how actually how long that is in terms of like if you are alive for 1,000 years, like fucking what a dreary amount of time that is. And then you think of 4,500 years ago, or whatever it was when they were actually building that thing, and maybe it's much longer. I mean, maybe you're right, and maybe the construction, maybe rather the measurement is of a very small piece of material, and maybe they don't have the evidence that could show what it really was.
Interview on Nova, on PBS, and
I still think
I
that
don't
shit
know the
older
exact date
than
where
what
this
the
interview. This is where
Egypt, the fucking scholarly
right here.
Egyptologists.
It's when it comes
the
to
academics
dating,
say-
the organic material, and there
It's
it's
smart,
right. They're
Yeah.
But they
having
got X-ray
radiocarbon dating
cameras.
or carbon-14 dating done.
'Cause I'm
in
like, how'd they
Egypt,
get caught?
obviously before
And
we
I
did
looked
our
at the
study.
comments, and somebody who
And
works there
it's
said
been
we
done
have
on
X-ray
some
cameras.
material
Yeah,
from Giza,
you
for
just see
example.
through that shit.
The
There's
great boat that was
it's literally
established
it's hot
south of the Great
inside
Pyramid,
this
which
hollow piece
belongs
of
to
wood.
Khufu,
What are you
and
doing?
that was
Get out of
radiocarbon
here.
dated.
Right, and then
probably
like
about
it's like
2600
20 people
BC.
packed in there,
See,
so
this
it's
is
like
what I mean. That
heat
doesn't
alert,
prove
heat alert.
jack
I
shit
seen
for
some
the
shit
age
Like
of
how
the
what's
world
the
that
how
they
do they
built.
detect it? Like
It says Nova says,
Wait.
but how you carbon date
Okay.
the
But then at the same
themselves
time,
and
wood
then
is
that
kind of heavy, so they
stone,
probably.
that's what I'm saying. Like if one
And
person was in there, would they
says,
been able to
we
get
have
away
the
with it,
idea
or would they have
that
just
back
detected
to
the heat and the
radiocarbon
point?
date the pyramids
Yeah, and
directly.
it might be
As you say,
standard
you need
to
organic
fucking
material in order
use
to do carbon
fucking
14
thermal
dating because all living
optics
creatures
on all
and
buildings.
wood and stuff like
Yeah.
yeah, probably.
carbon 14
Just
during
standard on your
its
vehicle.
lifetime.
And then
Why
so
is there a
that's what I'm
hot
saying.
spot
Like
here?
what's the level? Is it like there's gonna be a hot spot in the corner, like regardless of whether it's one person or 20 people?
Carbon 14 organic
Same shit, just like
and
put
by
your
virtue
baggage
of the
through a
rate of
fucking
disintegration of the
thing at
carbon
the
14
airport, you know,
atoms
they
and
can
the
see
amount
right
of
through
carbon
your shit
14
real
in
life.
sample, you can show how old it is.
But you know what would
So
be
how do you
nice?
get
I know
the
it costs
pyramids?
money,
'Cause
but
they're made out of stone and mortar.
if you're
Well,
gonna
in
sit
the
those people in
1980s,
camps anyway,
when I was crawling
then why
around
not at
on
least
the
like teach
pyramids,
them a
as I
skill or
used to
teach
do, and
them
I still
something
do,
and
I
then
noticed
try
that
to show them the
contrary-
way how to
that
be a
contrary
leader.
to what many guides
Like
tell
you're spending
people,
all the money to
even
hold them,
stones
feed them,
the Great
detain them
Pyramid of
anyway,
Khufu are put
right?
together with great quantities of
Might as well
mortar.
make use of it.
We're
So I'm
looking
sure
to see
many of
at
them
the
have
core.
skills.
A pyramid is basically,
Doctors,
most
laborers,
basically, two separate
whatever.
constructions. It's an outer shell of very fine polished limestone
You
with
think that's
great
what's done?
accuracy in its joint, but most of that's missing. And some of
You can at least
and
teach
the
them
other
English.
construction is in the
Whoever,
inner core,
any immigrant that tries to
which
come
is
here.
filled in this shell. Since most of the outer casing
they can
is
apply to
missing,
be a
what you see
translator.
now
There you
is
go.
the step-like
Think
structure
smart.
of the core.
But then
The
the
core
American
was
citizens
made
are gonna
with
say
a
who's
substantial
paying for
slot factor.
We're paying for it
as my
anyway.
friend who's a mechanic likes to
Paying
say
to
about
feed
certain
them and hold 'em.
automobiles. That is, they did go in the stones very accurately.
You
see
you
great
pay a
spaces
teacher,
between
and then you
stones,
have
and you
somebody
can
else
actually
who
see where the man
learns while they're there,
were
and then when they
up
get
there,
released, they teach somebody
and they
else. It can be a
didn't,
domino effect.
They may have like 4 or 5, even
I'm just
6
saying.
inches between two stones, and they jammed down
I don't know. I
pebbles
always
and
feel bad
cobbles
for the illegals.
and
you
some
know.
broken stones and slop big quantities of gypsum mortar in there. I noticed that in the
You're not supposed to be here, so
interstices.
why?
And that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm not
Should
saying
you-
accept them. I'm not saying whatever, but you're gonna detain them and hold them. They be holding them people for however long they want to hold them. So if they're gonna be there anyway, why not at least teach them some skills and show them like, yo, this is the way. So next time, this is how you get into this country. That's free. If you guys still gotta pay somebody to run it anyway, why don't you just have somebody who's running it that speaks, that can teach, and you just hire this one person? There's only one person to pay.
But recently there's
We
been
could do that.
development
Yeah, not
in
this person's
carbon
salary has to
14
be
dating
increased
where they use
because
atomic
they're doing more
accelerators
than one
to
job.
count
We can have two separate ones, and then we're giving jobs to people that people had to be there anyway.
Then it comes back to the taxpayers. Who's paying for these jobs?
And
Who's
involve
paying these people?
us
I'd gladly pay for
climbing
that.
all over the old kingdom.
To pay, or to fix the roads or build some
It's gotta
Take
schools.
sound
as
good enough
much in the
for
way of
people to
organic
actually
samples as we
do
could.
that shit.
We're
But then that's
damaging the
why you
pyramids
gotta
because
listen to a
of
lot of
tiny
right
huts.
wing
It's a
Americans
very
and see what
strange
Americans
experience
think.
crawling over.
I mean, we all immigrants.
Oh,
Oh, I know. I mean, it's wishful thinking, but and I'm way too. I know I'm way too sympathetic. I need to be like, but I think I'm being realistic though. Like I'm not like. If I was just being sympathetic, I could just be like, oh, just let them all in, just let them all in. Like, no, I literally sat here and thought about this. Like, what is an actual solution? And I feel as though they let people into this country, but it's like, what can you do? What can you offer to this country? So why not help these people learn how to do something and tell them like, yo, this is how you're gonna get over here.
The pyramids
And we always need
themselves were
translators.
archaeological sites during the time
But
of being
that's
built.
with any
If it took 20 years
any
to build
citizen,
them,
any foreign citizen, like if you're really
and
trying
now
to
being to think that
acquire
Kufu may have
citizenship,
reigned
you
during
have to
double the
prove
length
that you're
of
going to
time
come here
that
and
we
be productive. You're
traditionally
going to be a
assigned
student,
them.
or you're going to be a
People were
business person,
building
or
the Great Pyramid
Right.
over
something
3
like.
decades.
You're gonna add
It
to
was
the society, and that's what I'm
occupied-
saying.
it was
So,
occupied site
I mean, I'm not
as
saying
long
just
as
give
some
them something for
campsites
free,
and
but these are
hunters and
people that are
gatherers
hungry. They're
occupied.
saying, yo, my
The
circumstances
archaeologists
are
figured out
so
the
bad
desert.
that I'm trying, I will do
Yeah.
anything
What
to
do you
get out
think
of here.
impression right now?
That's somebody
in
that
your
I can give a
areas?
Well,
chance. The American
thinking
dream.
they're-
We open our
they're
arms
basing
to
this on
everybody.
what
America
was
is the land of the
in
free. We
cracks
love
of
all.
these pyramids
We're
over
allies
time.
to everyone,
It doesn't
except for when we're
necessarily
not.
mean that that's how it was initially built.
Right.
So
So
it could really mean, first of all, the reason
I get it,
why
money, but like I said, you're still
there
paying to
is
hold them there
these,
anyway,
these
and somebody to
big
watch
gaps, and
them,
that you can see these big
security,
gaps in the outer-
people
in
who
the
catch
core
them
is
crossing
because
over.
They
And
stole
that's
the
already,
structure on the
that's
outside.
already a burden on
The
taxpayers.
limestone,
That's why they don't
smooth
like
part
to leave
limestone was
the hop in the
stolen.
fence, because
They
it costs so
raided
much
this
for us to
motherfuckers
detain y'all
throughout
and
history,
feed y'all
you know,
and house y'all
because
until we
we're
figure out how to
stuff
fucking
in
get you out of our
Iraq.
country.
They,
Or
the pyramids
what we're gonna
used to
do
be covered
is
in
already, and that's
limestone.
why
That's why I said, I know I'm too
immigration.
sympathetic.
No, it's just this is
Stole it. They
people
used it
are
to
in this
build
shit for
pyro.
generations. Like, how do we
it's,
do
it's wild that
immigration? Like,
there's buildings
nobody
of
has
Cairo that
the
are
perfect
made out of the
solution,
pyramids.
but everybody knows,
It's
like
crazy.
you say,
Hey,
it
here's
just
something
costs so
else
fucking
worth
much.
bringing
You're
up, though,
already
Jamie.
doing
If
all
you
this
wouldn't
shit,
mind, if you could,
go
like,
extra
find
step
the
and
news
make
articles.
their
This is a
situations
year
better.
old,
And
where
then
they
Americans
found-
gonna fear,
so
like,
there was
okay,
pieces
this
of
is their big
wood
thing.
taken
What's
out
their
of the
main thing
block
about
inside the
immigrants?
Great Pyramid.
They're taking our
And
jobs.
this
They're
thing
taking our
still
jobs.
alive.
But then, but that's how they still feel.
How many of us Americans, and I'm gonna be real stereotypical right now, and everybody who's gonna watch this, and you included, can hate me, but how many of us are really, okay, well, I will say men do construction, because a lot of immigrants in general, no matter what you are, you come over there, do construction, do shit like that, but like, how many women are actually want to or have been a housekeeper or done something like that? Like, most immigrants that come over here, they housekeep, they nanny, they babysit, they do this, they do that.
I
Like,
tell you one thing I noticed about a lot of, especially Mexicans
which is now
in general, because that's who I normally grew up around in
Here's
South
something
Carolina,
else that's
but
pretty crazy to think about.
Mexicans and El
Spanish
Salvadorians.
in general,
What I
you
had
don't
read,
see
I don't know if it
homeless
was this article or
Spanish
another one,
people, yo.
but they had a margin of error with
Not
You'll see homeless black
Unless
people.
he's strung, it's like really strung out, and his family just disowned him. But
You don't hardly see
Hispanic people know family. That's why they get ahead, because they come over here, and Asian people too.
even if
They
they
come
not
over here
even
and live
born
together.
here and they come
It-
from,
so it-
they,
it- it-
they
it
are
doesn't
illegal
prove
and they only
anything.
been
There's
here
been
for a
some
little
other
while.
explanations
These
I read,
motherfuckers
like they
figure
said,
out a
like,
way
well,
to make
maybe
that shit work.
because
You
we
don't
have this
see
horse
these
scarce
motherfuckers
out
homeless.
there that maybe
I
this
told
wood
you I
was
had a
already
friend that's
500 years
illegal,
old when it was
and
used for the
you
construction
know
of
she's
the
gonna be at the same
pyramid.
job for the rest of her life. She cannot fuck that job up because she don't have a social, and that's the only shit. When she got that shit, she was good. So that shit is like I can't even imagine living my life like that. Like that's miserable enough to know, yo, I gotta stay at this job all my fucking life.
Maybe not.
But she always made that shit work though.
Yeah,
She
so
always
that's what
made
they
that shit
just
work.
look like. And so they,
And I can't imagine being like that where you can't even go and like, how do you get medical care?
But then,
the outside
like,
limestone.
the
So,
American
who knows
fear
what
is,
they
oh,
did
you're
in
taking
terms
our
of patching
jobs.
it up.
And
Right,
then,
and it's worth
so
mentioning
now
that
if
some
you,
of the
if we
theories
train them and
that
teach them to
maybe
speak
there was
English
a
and
large
give them some more
earthquake that
skills, they're
originally
gonna take
knocked
even
them all
more
down
jobs from us.
from there.
We're paying them we're
but
giving them free
talking about
education to
Romeo.
come and take our
I've never heard
jobs.
you mention the
even
pyramid
faster.
pyramid. Did you see it? when
Because
you
now
were
they know the
there?
language and
There
they're
was a-
acclimated.
Talking about restoration of a pyramid.
Right.
I stumbled across this pyramid in Rome that.
And I mean, I
they
get that
restored
aspect of it
within
too,
the last
being
couple
realistic
years.
and logical,
It's
taking my
been
feelings out of it. It is
and there's a little
more
bit of
money.
it.
But I feel like, okay, so then
No,
don't charge people
will
taxes,
say,
the
like, we need
government.
to
If y'all
preserve
want to
and
pay
rebuild
for
it,
it, just make
preserve
some
it,
money
no,
like y'all
show
do
it
for
as
everything
it
else.
is.
Or,
Like
like I said, let them be like, this gonna sound fucked up, but almost like indentured servants. But not a servant, but you get what I mean, the idea of that. Like, alright, that's what I'm saying. So it's just like, alright, you need to do this work. You're here, learn this skill. You're practically in prison. It's like being in prison and the men make this shit for a couple of cents. But look, we're gonna give you, gonna make a little bit, so when you leave, you got something to go back with. And we're gonna tell you this how you gonna do it. But while you here, since you wanna keep trying to break in and spending all our money, you gonna make us this money back. Go ahead and make these belts. Go ahead and make this candy. Package up this fish.
Was equivalent to a 47.
But is that not smart? Is that not like
And
making
compare that
use
to
of it? I feel like
Phoenix and the Chase
make
Tower
use
across
of the people
Arizona.
there, teach them a skill, they have a skill,
within a couple
and
years
you
the
make the
same
money
as
back.
180
Don't worry about what
original.
they're doing because well, 9 times out of the 10, they're gonna be just manufacturing shit or making a product. It's not gonna be like,
And look, you know, a 50
oh, we're gonna teach you medicine and we're gonna teach you this and we're gonna teach you this, and then they all go back and like steal our job, so to speak. Like, nah.
I used to have a bit about the
Give them like some type of like factory work.
basically that what
Let people
what
sell,
happened
right?
was the dumb people outfuck the smart people.
And then you kind of working for your
That's
money,
why,
right?
Like the people that
That's
were
too
left
much.
behind,
I mean, that's
had
they
no
do that in
idea how
prison.
built, and they just said,
Exactly.
"Oh, we built this."
Yeah, it's
But
like
if
slavery.
you-
I
one
mean,
of the
they're
things
they're
that I
literally
pointed out,
slaves in a camp. They can't go
Appreciate
anywhere. They be
Yeah,
having them
but
fucking packed like
it's close.
sardines in there, probably
But
eating
the
slop.
Great
Like, what do you
Pyramid
think
has
it's like? You think they're just like in a country club or something?
The precision
Because I done
count,
seen
some
pictures of them
them
camp
teaching
shows.
them
That shit
five
looks
years
like
ago.
prison.
If
You
cut
just not in
Yeah, it's not
handcuffs.
forced-
today,
it's not
it would
forced
take
labor, though.
664 years to make that.
Can't
pyramid.
force
They
slavery.
think
I'm
this
not
guy
saying
did it
forced
in
labor. I'm
You
saying
just
give
said-
them.
You just
They
said
would have
make
to
them
do
work.
something.
Well, no, I'm
This
saying
is
like give
very
them the
easy.
option. Like, okay,
But
do
it's
you want to
literally
work
one
and make some
stone.
money?
You have to do one
Pay them
stone
a decent
approximately
wage,
every
and then you
4
can make
minutes
some of your
to
money
make
back
that
too
happen.
because they're
And so
spending up
you
all our
just
money.
said
I mean, it's harsh, but
in that prior
that's what people are
article,
worried about, right?
Tulsa,
Losing money.
maybe
So make some damn
he's
money
bringing
back
this
and
That's
let
what
these
they
people
do.
make some money
They
too.
come here, they
They
get
don't even know, and it
like
validates the
crappy
point
ass
I'm making,
jobs,
which is that
and when they
because
go
all
to
of
buy
us
stuff,
lost
they
history
are
since then.
paying it back because everybody
Yeah,
pays
they don't
taxes
even
when you
work
pay.
Well, I
taxes
know
off of
that,
it.
but that's what I'm
And
saying
it's
for the
okay
people
to
that
not
you're
know
gonna they're gonna
something,
get
but
sent
the
back
reality
if they
is
get
just
caught.
don't
Is
know.
my point.
So much guesswork. It's so
Right?
fascinating.
Okay.
Fun. That's why I like
So
these topics.
you're gonna send them back with no money,
What I really
no
love
nothing
is
after you
that
done held them
there was
people and
this
just held them
one
here for all
place
this time, and you're
that
constantly
was
spending
so
money.
much
They're
more
not making any
advanced
money.
than
They're
anywhere
losing
else.
time
This
out of their
one
lives,
part
and they're
of
just trying to get
Africa
over here, and you're telling them no,
where
you can't come
civilization
because you spending up all our
reached
damn
this
money, and we told you to come
incredible
legally.
like their construction methods.
Shit, if it's up to me, I'm letting everybody come over here. Don't leave it up to me. Because I have too much of a heart to like tell somebody no, like, oh, my country is terrible, I want to come to yours. Like, come on, sis, bring your whole family, let's go. I'm gonna let you in. And that's just me.
Where the Sphinx is facing the constellation Leo.
I'm not saying make them work, but give them the option. Because I would rather the option to work and at least make a little bit of money to go back with, especially if I'm dirt poor and I'm trying to get out of my circumstances. Let me help you, and you help me, and we call it even.
Which is a
Balance.
wobble of the Earth. That is
What would be your solution? Send them all, send everybody back? What?
25,000
Immediately?
per year.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you.
I would have built the wall along with Trump.
If you take that to and
Other countries got walls.
the Sphinx
Hey,
would be
it's just-
looking at Leo.
I would
previously.
love to go
Now you're
live
talking
in Norway for
about
like 3 or 4 years.
35,000
I can't do that. I just can't go to
Which is
Norway
wild.
and be like, oh, I live here. I'm gonna go get a job at the
If
local
that is
Starbucks. I
the-
can't.
I kind of hate it though, because I feel like there was a time where you could just be like, yo, I mean, you still had dynasties and stuff like that, but there was a time where you could just be like, you know what?
You could just travel.
My
the
whole
earth.
village, we could just decide this whole little county. You know what? We're gonna migrate here and have a little crew of like 300, 1,000. Like, yo, we out.
Europeans have nation states and they've privatized the land and they've privatized travel and everything else. Like,
Everything is about money and control.
And no country allows that shit.
That's why it's like, yo, we're free, but we're really not. You're so constrained. You can't just get on a plane. You can't just cross over a border, even though it's just a line.
And we can't just go to Canada or Mexico like that either.
Nonsense.
Not for
You could sneak
extent.
into Canada,
I mean, we
but
can go over there legally, but you can't be there for like a year. Like, motherfuckers, like, yo, you still here? Yo, what's you're not on vacation for a year? Like, what are you doing? Oh, we live here now. No, you don't live here. Go back to your own fucking country.
35,000 years old or whatever it is. Like, my God, like, how long has civilization
And
been
I
around?
get like
And
there
how
may
many
be more
times has
opportunities
it
here in
been
America,
reset?
and I understand
When
that.
you
It's
talk
just
about
like,
this young Dryas impact,
and like you said, I
especially
would
That's
have
what I'm saying, and who's
a
to
more, I would
say-
have a more
it opens
relaxed
up a whole world of
immigration.
speculation.
Because they only
I
allow so
went
many
somewhere-
thousands of people to come in
Come
a year.
in.
I would double that shit or whatever. Just up the number.
Especially if we're supposed to be a melting pot. But that's the thing, of course, you know, they don't want to add no minorities or people of color. So, and as a person of color, I'm super pro-black, but like I'm pro everybody too. Like,
But that's
alright,
not true because at the same time, like Silicon Valley
the Epic of Gilgamesh.
is like 50%
hear about these
Asians and
stories of
Indians.
floods.
And they love letting them motherfuckers come because they do
It's
generate
something
some
that
more
is- it's a
creative
core
ideas
part of almost
and
every
technology
ancient
and
yeah, I was
innovation.
gonna say, well,
when they
They
talk
let
about the history of
And-
Caucasian Asians and Indians.
Well, I was gonna say with the like
It's
film,
cataclysmic
anime,
events that
food,
reshaped
fashion,
the society.
Asian culture in
People
general.
emerged
Definitely
from the darkness
technology.
and restarted
And
the world. You know,
most of
Noah and his
the
children.
Do you want to hear something
Indian immigrants that I went to
crazy
school
that
with,
goes along?
they were smart at everything, but they were especially smart at
Alright,
math and
so
engineering.
The CIA
So,
in the
but
this
we're,
is
I mean,
decades
everybody
ago.
has their own thing.
In the
Cause think
50s,
about all the
discussed
African
something called
kids,
the
like,
atom
and you
Eve
see the shit that they engineer.
So
And I'm talking
anyone
about
goes
not
to
the ones that live in the nice areas in like Nigeria or this place and there, but like I'm talking about like villages, and they just the chick who took fucking tires and made furniture out of it, like.
And this details the destruction
Made his own car. That's what I'm saying. So it's like, yo, it really, honestly, it's
and it's worth or 11,550.
you got all different people of minorities
years
that,
ago. So
huh?
it coincides with 11,600
Right, that was
timeframe.
really running.
Days
Like,
before we
so
were
that's what I
talking
say.
about
Even
Drive
though, like,
possibility.
yeah,
Where's
the Asian and the
what's
Indian
based
kids got it, but
So,
them,
well, that's
I
great.
went to
That's part of the
a
mystery, Joe.
my high school was
Now,
like an
this-
exchange school
and
for
let me also
foreign
say
students.
this.
So
What's
we had a lot of Hispanic
declassified, this is like a
kids.
handful of
We
years
had
ago,
a handful of Asian and Indian
declassified, so
kids.
We
And we had a
no
lot of
understanding,
African
though,
kids.
what's not declassified
And
is why
yo,
the
everybody who
CIA
came
was
over there
discussing
worked
this book in some
extremely
top
hard and
secret
was
meeting, though
extremely
every
fucking
meeting in
smart
the
and
CIA is
motivated.
technically top secret. Everything they do is top secret.
So I don't know,
But-
like I
so
feel like
it
let people in,
details
yo.
that destructions
Population
so it basically
shit,
says
different
that there's a
ages,
micronova that goes off
ethnicity,
in
whatever.
the earth routinely, and what it does
A
is
micronova.
essentially that there's a quite literal
But yeah, that's
fusion
pretty smart. Just
explosion
send them all
of the
back
Earth. Essentially,
immediately,
it's like a
like.
hiccup, and it causes continental displacement. It causes
But that's the
movement
thing.
of
But then we
continents
do
as well
storms,
as,
so that's what I'm saying. If you
continental
are
sized
going
tidal
to
waves
just store
that
them
just
like
wash
fucking
everything
cattle,
away, and that's-
like property,
that
like
says why there's no
slaves,
evidence
and they're all fucking
for any of
cooped
it left
up
over
and
because
can't even go
quite
outside or
literally
see no fucking
wiped a
sunlight,
vast
right?
portion of the earth clean. Now,
So
I'm not
Probably
this is
eating
a theory
slop,
from
so you
50
might as well at
years
least
ago,
let them make
the
some
CIA
fucking
was
money
put
while
on.
you
Yes.
at it.
Was there any
They're
scientific
telling you they poor, they
backing of
hungry, they
this?
desperate.
what's
What's
all right, so
good?
you know what they cite in there is those woolly mammoths that were died off in mass quantities that still had food in their mouths. That's Joe, that's in there. I remember hearing, I don't know if it was you
It's
or
Randall Carlson.
yes.
Yeah.
So this
Babe.
book was written.
He said all that.
It was
And y'all across the board.
Listen, I said they can make some belts, some chocolates. See, he went straight into the
So
going
they ain't
cut.
even gotta go far. As soon as you cross the border,
So this book was pretty much little known.
Each bag of cotton earns you a day in America. That is terrible.
When you see how
barrels
Google
in
curates
a day.
information, you go to Google things.
Type right inside.
Terrible, terrible.
A few pages in.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, send people back, but if you're not gonna send people back, at least
It's probably
don't.
related.
At least treat them with some human decency. Like,
When I look at this book,
remember
there's
that
also a claim that Jesus
we're basically all animals underneath of this. Like, we have an animalistic nature.
Nah,
If
I don't know if that's written there.
we've
but
both
what it
been
does say is that
starving
Jesus,
for a whole
Osiris, and
week,
Vishnu were all
and
the
the
same
world is
person. It says
crumbling,
that these stories
how we're
passed
gonna
down,
react
yeah,
is gonna be different than how we react today when
Another
we
section
have
of the
food in
book,
our
Thomas
stomach
also
and we're in
claims
good
that
mood.
Jesus was abducted by aliens.
That's not in there. That's
Like,
not
we're
in there.
human at the end
No,
of the
I read
day,
on
and
document.
desperation will make you do things that
Where does
you
this come
wouldn't
from?
normally
This is
do. You know what I mean?
Yeah, disinformation.
Listen.
It's not true.
Cause shit,
No, listen,
if my country was that bad, I might try to do that shit too
This
now.
section of the book, Thomas also claims that Jesus was
I don't know if I'm
abducted
gonna put
by
my
aliens
baby in
on
that
Easter
situation
Sunday.
knowing I
Oh,
could get
God,
shot,
this is-
but I probably
It
would
says
try
that
to.
two angels came
Like,
to
fuck
Earth
it, yo, I gotta
in
get
their
me and my kid
space
up out this
vehicle
shit.
to take care of the aftermath of Jesus' crucifixion. Then it goes on to say, this sounds like someone was just having fun releasing a
This is-
Daily Star. Daily Star is correct me if I'm wrong, it's like a tabloid.
Yeah.
It's like the Inquirer.
It could be me running that site, Bob's website. It's no different. They just call it the Daily Star. I could be like
How much money
the
is it gonna be
Daily
to build a
whatever,
fucking
and,
wall?
and then just make my own thing. But
Yeah.
if you go to the document itself,
Less money
That's
than
not in there. I read the damn
motherfuckers
thing.
year after year after
I made a whole
year.
video on it.
What was the
It's
projected budget,
pretty
though? Now I gotta
interesting,
look at it,
Jake,
'cause I know
lists
it was
a lot
something
of
astronomically
cataclysmic
crazy.
events, and it's saying that this is the reason why we don't have understanding, and it even cites the Great Pyramid of Giza as being, quote, an enigma. I like that, because it is an enigma.
Let's pause right here because I gotta pee.
Okay,
so
let's do it.
Talk about
I don't
this
mind
when we
building the
come
wall. I
back
just
to
hate how
talk about
everybody's
this,
like,
He said,
this
"Brother, here, 'cause
build the wall. He said what?
classified by the
I
CIA.
never heard him say you gotta go pee, yo.
And we're back. Whew, happy. I was
What,
holding
this?
it as much as I can, but I drank a lot of water today, unfortunately.
Babe,
I was
this-
holding it as well, so that was lovely.
It's a weird thing. Like you're trying to concentrate, but you also have to pee. It's not good.
Yo, I play this word game, and people are so weird because they'll message you like on it and be like, "It's your turn."
What was the
Like, bitch, I
purpose
know.
behind this? Like, why did they publish this?
Why you messaging
So
me? You don't
just
know
to
me.
clarify, they
play
did not
Scrabble,
publish
man.
it. some doctor named Chan Thomas, who's a mysterious figure in the South, because it's hard to find a lot of info, although keep in mind this is back in the 50s, so it's hard to find info.
So he published it?
He published it, and then for unknown reasons, the Central Intelligence Agency discussed it in a meeting and classified that meeting, although let me just clarify, everything the CIA does is technically classified. A lunch meeting is nothing's available to the public.
Right.
But then it wasn't. It was kept secret for decades, up until I want to say it was 2012 or 2013. It was desanitized and released. And so the big question for me is, why were they discussing it? And the fact that there's certain details in it that are corroborated by scientific evidence that we've gathered in the last couple decades. Say, for example, the 11,600 year younger bias, and essentially, I mean, so to me, I'm like, it's highly fascinating. What's that about? I'd like to know why they were chatting about it, and I'd like to know what their conclusions were. None of that's available to the public. They declassified this with absolutely no context whatsoever. Same thing with the Richat structure. They studied that as well. They did covert surveillance back in the 60s. They flew over it in a million different directions. And you can find out on CIA.gov. I made a video about this earlier this year. It was like a follow-up to the Richat Atlantis theory, where I gave a more compelling argument. And what was so interesting about this, Joe, is that there's a huge part of it, a page and a half, that's redacted. And it's the entire context. It says, although the information from the scientific study will be available to worldwide scientific community, totally blank after that. I could show you a screenshot of it.
What did they have a premise, like why they were going and studying it?
They were looking for geomagnetic, or excuse me, electric or anomalies. And so it was one of like 12 or 13 sites or 15 that were from around the world they studied. So it wasn't just that one. But Joe, what's so interesting about it is that Atlantis was said to have had special properties, like it had springs of water that were warm and cold, and it was said to be special according to the Poseidon who had created it.
This was back in
but what's interesting about this,
January
Joe,
of 2020,
is
so
not just the fact they studied
2 years ago,
but the fact that there's the entire context of it is still classified to
That's
this day.
11 billion.
Now, let me be clear,
Says,
nothing in that
20
document says
million per
anything about
mile,
ancient history or Atlantis, nothing like that.
576 mile
But this site was
border
studied.
wall.
We already discussed how
More
unusual
expensive
it is.
than any other
Neither
wall
one
under
of us had heard
construction
about
in
it
the
until
world.
recently, and if there's one comment that stuck
It
out,
has
there are
topped 11
thousands of
billion,
comments on these videos, like, how
120
have I
million a
never
mile.
heard of this Richat structure before? And if you were to, Jamie, if
Well,
you
this
bring
is
up my
old,
video
so-
from May of this year, and there's a certain
Well,
part
that's
of it
cheaper
that
than I thought it
shows
was.
a
Let's do it.
screenshot
Shit.
of this part that's redacted. I want you to see this, Joe, because it's
so
the
11?
entire
Shit,
context
we got
of the scientific study itself is classified today.
And this is from what year?
I want to say 1963. I got to double check. I sometimes mix up my dates, but it was that
Maybe
time
it
frame.
says, by the way, we killed Kennedy.
Probably it's in there.
I'm
Look
looking on
up
the CIA's website, but
Mexico's
those are funny things, but
southern
this
border
is kinda
wall.
interesting. I feel like it does talk about how it's declassified in part, but a sanitized copy has been approved for release.
I think
Yeah.
Mexico actually
And
has
so that's the Adam and Eve
wall
story, just to
at their
clarify. He's
southern
referring
border
to Adam and Eve
from
story, not the
whatever
Richat
country
structure.
below
Two different
Mexico.
Wow.
This
Is
is
it
on the website
Guatemala?
for the CIA.
Sanitized copy.
Yeah. Do you want to click on that PDF? Just to,
I was already
I
checking.
It's hard to look.
I don't know
for,
these
I mean,
things about
Right,
Trapper
but I mean,
saying
just so you see what
something
it looks
different.
like,
Like it's
just
ranging
How weird
between
is
11
that,
and
that the
18.
CIA had a fuck. What? Whoa, back up. What the fuck is that? Cross section of Earth?
Yeah,
Yeah,
they're
that
saying
border.
that the internal, the part, the
I don't see how
whole
you would
premise
find
of
it.
this thing is that the Earth, that something happens inside the Earth
This
is-
routinely.
This is the
Periodic.
Mexico,
They say
Guatemala
it's where the
border.
legends of
I don't see how
Noah's
you would
flood
find
comes
that. I don't
from.
see why trucks needs to be so big.
But that's-
So
at the
was
same
what
time,
they were throwing
even
around
Mexico
before
got a
the
border at their
introduction
southern
of
wall.
theory.
I understand that,
Yes.
but
That's
why
what
does
I'm
trucks
saying.
need to be
America's
so
like,
big?
That's racist. That's racist.
Yeah, now,
Well, the thing about it, right, is it's not racist, but the people that are so gung-ho to do it are fucking racist. So that's the problem. If
So
they did this shit
thought
with some
that
good
this was gonna
intent,
happen
I think
again.
people would be
Well,
more open to
Look at
it.
this, in
If
California, the mountains shaped like
Obama
that.
said, yo, let's put the
it's
wall
a
up,
way-
people would be more open to it, or Kamala. But if Joe Biden says it, it's like, yo, fuck you, Joe. You white.
It's
starts
a
to
way
race
to
eastward
deter
with the force of
illegals.
1,000
That's all
armies.
it
the
is.
wind
Right,
is
and I
shredding
understand that, but you
everything,
understand that most of
and
the
it's
people that are
supersonic
so
bombardment. The
gung-ho
unbelievable
about it
mountain of the
also
Pacific
do hate
seawater
illegals
follows
because
the wind
they're
eastward,
Hispanic.
burying Los Angeles and San Francisco.
They hate everybody. Let's just be real. We live in America. Majority of America is racist. So I think that's the problem for people. I'm just saying. I'm not saying that you don't have a point, because you do. Like, facts are facts. Keep them out.
Just because they're racist
doesn't mean they're wrong.
They're good. That is.
It's crazy.
I don't like your racist views, but
true.
What's
interesting is that it's talking about.
Right. Like, that's the thing. Like, I don't fuck with you, but yeah, you got that.
I agree with you, but
We agree for different reasons, but we agree for some of the same reasons.
and that's the thing, like,
It's probably
that's
some
very adult shit.
inkling that some of the stories
with the good part.
from ancient civilizations.
I know why y'all want it, and I know why we want it, but it helps. Both of our reasons are better for the country, and this. Will it completely stop motherfuckers from illegally getting in? No. Will it make it extremely harder? Yes.
I want to find.
It will deter a lot more people.
It's really complicated because it's hard.
Wow, look what literally just came
I
up.
want to do a Freedom of Information Act request right here. I want to see if the CIA has ever, or any of the intelligence communities, or have ever even just.
But I just don't understand why
looked
our
into it.
wall can't be
Because to
like
me,
this. Why
if
that wall
that-
have to be
If
so...
that thing was more than just a
And that shit got guard towers and everything though.
Yeah.
You try to cloud across that bad, we
unlimited
shoot you.
resources would study it, have a theory
Don't
of it
shoot people,
themselves.
like, tase
And so I
them,
want
or
to see if
like,
they.
I
Oh, is
shoot
that
them with
a good
beat
idea?
bags. I don't know what to say.
Internet, let's do it, because I went on to submit it, and it's like,
I'm
hey,
just
there's
not for
a bunch
killing
of
people,
categories
like,
you can submit,
God.
Send me that.
and
I'll
nothing
post that shit
applied. So I'm like, I need to talk to somebody to go.
You so
Because
messy.
Information Act requests are free. Anyone can do it. We have a right to do it.
Yeah.
The only thing you pay for is if you want them to print out pages, and it's like, that's cheap as hell. It's like, it's not even a factor.
So this, if you have a story about
I'm so sore
this
today.
idea that the Earth has some sort of a nova effect and things explode and the Earth stands. If they were thinking that, they had to. And if they were looking at the Richard structure, they had to be looking at the pyramids too. They had to try to figure out what the hell went on there.
I would think
Yeah.
so. If put it this way, if I was running the CIA, I'd be looking at all kinds of crazy stuff too, and that would be one of them.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. I'm really interested in this whole Adam and Eve
I
thing.
was
So they
running
think
the
that this
CIA.
happened and that civilization got brought down to its knees and brought to a small amount of people. But they were kind of right? Like if you think about super volcanoes, like those do happen. And if they really did
Yeah,
think
I'm shocked
that
they haven't even
that was some
called
sort of
you.
a volcano,
So
that
they must be
the
busy. They
Richard
were like,
structure
oh,
was
you
some sort of
dropping
a
it off?
volcano
We'll get to you
that
later.
erupted and cooled and erupted and cooled. And if there was some sort of volcanic activity that was still
Honestly,
going on under the surface, that would
If you don't
account
feel like going back
for
out,
the idea that
I
Atlantis
probably
was
could just
saying
run
there's
around the
water
corner
that was
to the
cool
store
and
and
also
get the
water that was
last couple
hot
of things we
in the
need.
same area. Much like
Rose
you
gonna
get in
start snowing
Yellowstone,
soon.
right? Like you get these cool lakes, but then you also
And
get
them
like
snow
Old
crowds are
Faithful,
crazy.
these geysers of hot water and there's these ponds that people have fallen into and never seen again because they get melted.
Yeah. I think it makes it even more compelling. Now, some people will say, like, well, it's a natural formation, so it can't be, because as Plato describes it, is that it was created by Poseidon. I'm like, Poseidon can mean Earth. It was created by God, or just universe. So, to me, I'm like, in the fact of its very size that Atlantis was described at, I'm like, it would make far more sense that it was a geological formation, because that's what we do today. We build on geological formations all the time.
Have you been to Yellowstone?
I actually haven't, which is a real shame, because I lived in Boise, Idaho.
Pretty close.
Boise,
yeah.
Idaho.
It's wild. It's really interesting. It's first of all, it's kind of bizarre because the animals they have no fear of people because they've been sort of habitualized. So like you go by, especially because they released wolves into Yellowstone years ago. So the elk have decided it's a smart thing to go around where the people are all the time. So if you go to like this visitor center, there's a photo that I took. I think I put it on Instagram. It's me taking a selfie next to a soda machine, and behind me is a whole herd of elk just hanging out like, oh. I'm not sure if I did. But these elk are like basically like town deer. You ever been around town like Colorado? If you go